Scott, this is the Global Digest think tank group. You are our guest today,
Well, thank
and I don't know, yourself is a monk or you are Buddhist interest.
well. No, I am not ordained, so I'm not a priest or a monk, but I am a lay practitioner. So I've been practicing Zen for about 45 years now. I started at the San Francisco Zen Center in San Francisco, California, with my formal training, and that started in about 1978 and lasted until about 1985. And so after that, I went to Japan, lived in Japan for 12 years. I practiced meditation, Zen meditation there. Came back to the United States. I've been living in Arkansas for about 25 years now. And since I came back to Arkansas, I have reconnected with my teacher. My teacher at the San Francisco Zen Center was Zentatsu Richard Baker Roshi. Well, he left San Francisco Zen Center about the same time that I did, and he is now relocated into Colorado. So I have reconnected with him, like I said, in Colorado. And I'm also practicing at a Zen temple here in Arkansas. So, I'm continuing my practice as I go along.
Let's see. So, your teacher at the Zen Center, the teacher is a Japanese or who is original your teacher?
Like I mentioned, my original teacher when I first went to the San Francisco Zen Center was Zentatsu Richard Baker Roshi, and he's now in Colorado, and so he has continued to be my teacher throughout all these years.
Japanese, right?
He's American. Yeah, he's born in America.
But his name seems Japanese name.
Well, it's a given when they are ordained as a Zen priest, they are given a Japanese name. So I think most of the Zen priests in America, if they are in the Soto Zen tradition, which comes from Japan, they are given an ordained name, and his is Zentatsu. Now, his teacher was Japanese. Uh,
I
his
see.
name was his name was Shunryu Suzuki Roshi. He's from Japan, and he wrote a very famous book, probably the most popular book in all of Zen. It's called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. So, I read that book before I went to San Francisco to practice, and that's what actually really got me involved in Zen practice was that book right there.
I see. So I don't know about Zen. I know many other Buddhists, but I just curiosity about Zen Buddhism. It's to be a priest or to be a monk in Zen Buddhism. It's required. It's according to bloodline, or it's not necessary to be bloodline to be ordained or to be a priest, something like that in Zen Buddhism.
No, anybody can practice cross-legged meditation. You don't have to be a priest, you don't have to be a monk, but anybody can practice cross-legged meditation. So uh, that's what I do. That's what I enjoy doing. It's an integral part of my life is the cross-legged meditation. So no, not necessary to be ordained to do that. Not necessarily a bloodline. It has to be. I mean, you don't have to be, you know, related to your teacher as a family bloodline, but certainly it's sort of like a lineage. They call it a lineage, where they trace their lineage all the way back to Shakyamuni Buddha and on through India, China, Japan, and now in the Western world too. So it's not a blood lineage, but it's more of a teaching lineage or a Dharma lineage, passing the Dharma teaching on to future generations.
So Zen Buddhism is maybe slightly different from Theravada Buddhism, Yes,
Hmm.
South Asia, mostly Theravada Buddhism, but
Right.
northern Asia, usually Mahayana Buddhism, including Zen Buddhism. So,
Exactly.
as I know, usually in Theravada Buddhism, much restriction for the religious practices, and Mahayana has a kind of loose practice. Example, some monk they can marry something like that in Mahayana Buddhism in Japan or something somewhere else. But in Theravada Buddhism, monk can never marriage, and even they never uh, go under lady clothes or dress. I mean, they consider if you go below those lady clothes, it will be their power is become low, something like that.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
they they,
Uh-huh.
they stay away from women, even women uh, material facility. They never want to touch in Theravada Buddhism. So I don't know Zen Buddhism how the discipline or restriction in the Zen Buddhism.
Well, they certainly take vows, even if you are what we call lay ordained. You can be ordained as a lay person within the Zen tradition, and so when you become lay ordained, you take a set of vows, and these vows are they're perhaps not as strict as what you are talking about in Southeast Asia, but still they govern your moral behavior, and so people as best they can try to follow those. Now when priests are ordained, they take a ordination. Now, those have even higher vows too, or more stricter vows too. So, again, they try their best to, govern their morality as much as they can according to these vows here. But as you suggest, as you point out, the Mahayana vows are probably not as strict as the what we call Hinayana school, in that even this original teacher of the San Francisco Zen Center, Shunryu Suzuki Roshi, he was married. In fact, he was married twice. His first wife died at an early age, and then he remarried and he had children. He had at least two or three children that I know of. And then also my teacher, Richard Baker Roshi, was also married and had children too.
So they are slightly different, among different Buddhism. Have you ever practiced Zen Buddhism in Asia, in Japan, or somewhere else outside America?
Yes, as I mentioned, when I left the San Francisco Zen Center in 1985, I went to Japan and I lived in Japan for 12 years and practiced there. Now, I did not I did not practice formally in what we call a training temple, but I did practice somewhat informally in a more of a city type temple. It was like a local type temple, not a training temple. Well, I was also married, and we were raising a family, and so when you are married, raising and supporting a family, it occupies a lot of your time. So, because of that, I didn't practice as much as I wanted to, although I did continue my practice. But anyway, no, the most of the time that I spent in Japan, I was with my family. No, I don't consider myself to be a monk. I consider myself to be a lay practitioner.
So, by the way, what made you interested in Buddhism in this religion and you become Zen Buddhist member, right? You are a member.
Right, yeah. I would have to say that it probably goes back to when I was a young teenager, 12, 13, 14 years old. At that period of time, my parents, my mother and father, were going through a very long, protracted separation and divorce. And so, I mean, it was a very emotionally traumatic time for all of us. And so, I think that because of that emotional trauma, or if you want to refer to it as suffering, that led me to want to find help, to seek help. So I was just in the library one day as a 13-year-old. I was looking around and keep in mind that I was living in a very, very small city of about 10,000 people. So I felt myself very fortunate to find a book in the local public library about Buddhism and Buddhism practice. So that's what started my interest and, eventually my practice in Buddhism right there. That was the event that triggered it.
You learn by yourself and you find it by yourself, right? Nobody introduced you.
No, it was just by a stroke of good fortune that I found this book in the library and started reading it and then carried on from there. Well, I continue my Christian practice. I'm still a Christian. I mean, I like to go to church and enjoy the ceremony, the music, and the singing, and the prayer, and the fellowship. I still do that. So, frankly, I like all religions. I've never met a religion I didn't like, and so I don't necessarily consider myself to be strictly Buddhist or strictly Christian or strictly anything. I appreciate all religious practices.
Let's see. So you accept all religion, Buddhism and Christianity. You accept all of them.
Oh, sure. I believe that there's value in all of them. There's truth and value in all of them.
It isn't clash in in the doctrine and faith.
Well, I don't worship Buddhist idols. In fact, uh, this statue right here, this is the statue of the medicine Buddha. So I have, Buddhist statues all over my house, and so, they the I don't worship them, but I certainly ask for their guidance. I certainly ask for their help. And so for me, they represent an ideal of what I want to become. So I don't call that worship. I just call that, something that, a representation of something that I want to be, that I want to evolve into, here in this earthly life. So no, I don't pray to them. Now, of course, like I said, I ask for their help, but I don't pray to them. I don't worship them. And so likewise, I don't, my Christian practice is probably not like most Christians. I don't worship, God. I don't worship Jesus. Uh, it's more again, that I like to, receive blessings from them so that I can become, well, a better person.
But I mean, that is from your side, but uh, any former churches or former temple, the Buddhist organization, they have certain requirement, Example,
Uh-huh.
churches, if you are not believe or if you don't worship Jesus or Christ or God the Father, you cannot be any church member formally, if you
Uh-huh.
to be a church member. As well as in Buddhist.
Uh, I have a different cultural upbringing. I have different ways of doing things. And so, I mean, it's all fine as far as I'm concerned. As I mentioned, I have never been a part of a training temple in Japan. So I don't know exactly how that works, but I mean, you could be right. You probably are correct when you say that. But uh, even if somebody, I would hope anyway that if somebody were training in a Zen temple, if they wanted to go out once in a while to a Christian service, say like at Easter or Christmas or something like that. I would hope that their Zen teachers would not hold that against them. That's my hope, anyway.
You see, in San Francisco or your Arkansas, the Zen Buddhism are a little bit, uh, I mean, not the same with the Asian Buddhism. A little bit, I, it's a kind of a little bit losing, or how to say, not exactly same from Asian Buddhism. I can say like that.
It's certainly less strict. There are fewer restrictions. I mean, you can express yourself more fully in how you feel.
Right. But I know Protestant, 100 years ago in America, Protestant are also very strict, according to biblical, like Ten Commandments and all these biblical um, Bible instruction compared to 100 year nowadays, people are much loosely, they follow commandments and the Bible. Can you say like that?
Um, well, again, I think that that's probably not entirely the case. I mean, each different church is different. You have the Catholic Church and the mainstream Protestant. You have the fundamentalists and so on. So they have all different types of practices and restrictions and how they want their members to behave and so on. So I mean, I can't speak for all of them, but anyway, I've never in my Christian upbringing up until now, I've never had anybody try to control what I do. I mean, if I tell them that I, do cross-legged meditation every day, then generally they are, they're not opposed to that, because um, what can be more fundamental in life than doing cross-legged meditation? So, uh, most people are very accepting and very understanding of people that do that.
In America, uh, I'm not sure the popularity of Buddhism, how American people feel about Buddhism, and how at the moment the Buddhist population in America is increasing, or people is likely to interested in Buddhism, or it's how do you see the
I haven't looked at the trends recently. I don't know what percent of Americans consider themselves to be Buddhist. I mean, it might be 10%, it might be 12, 15. I really don't know. My feeling and my hunch is that it's probably growing gradually. Um, so yeah, I mean, there are all kinds of people, that have different attitudes towards Buddhist practice. I mean, they may consider it to be, I mean, if they're really very strictly Christian, they might consider anybody that's non-Christian to be mistaken or to be confused or to be a heathen or to be blasphemous or something like that. So, I mean, there's all kinds of attitudes towards Buddhism in America, but I think generally speaking, people, they have, kind of a positive attitude about it.
Let's see. I guess probably most Buddhists in America are who immigrant from Asia. They are originally Buddhist in Asia, and they immigrant to US and they built temple and pagodas.
I would not make that assumption without actually looking at the statistics. I personally would not make that assumption because uh, most of the people that I have encountered in my Buddhist practice at the San Francisco Zen Center, here in Arkansas, at the Los Angeles Zen Center, at the Crestone Mountain Zen Center in Colorado, the vast majority of those people are non-Asian, and they're
Really,
I've never encountered a immigrant Asian in any of those places. So um, what you're saying, could be true, but I would not necessarily make that assumption.
because I know many my familiar people from Asia, they immigrant to US and they build temple and pagodas. Probably they have their own temple and worship, not necessarily together with other people. Maybe like some Burmese, where we have their own Burmese temple. Japanese have their own Japanese temple. Thai have Thai Buddhist temple. Probably like that, as you said, you did not see me. Maybe your site has your own community-wise, probably, isn't it? And
Well, I would say that, the temples that you're talking about, with the immigrant Burmese or the immigrant Thai, the immigrant Japanese, and so on, these are probably temples that are kind of similar to churches. They're places of gathering, places of worship, and they don't uh, widespread, they do not practice cross-legged meditation. So I'm talking about, the Buddhist centers, the Buddhist temples, where actually the primary practice is cross-legged meditation. That's what I'm talking about. So I think that, of all the Americans who consider themselves to be Buddhists, either, ethnic Asian or non-ethnic nation, the ones that practice cross-legged meditation are primarily non-Asian. I would make that assumption. I don't have the statistics in front of me, but I think it's safe to make that assumption.
but myself is not Buddhist, so I not I'm not practice. I just see all my friends or nearby people are doing. So
Uh-huh.
that is my understanding. So interesting in America, it's Buddhism was here, but you don't know the number of temple and pagodas, right?
No, I don't. I haven't looked up the statistics recently.
anyhow, nowadays, any religion, Christianity or Buddhist or Muslim, compared to religious, the people are increasing secularism, you know.
Uh-huh.
Most people, they don't want any religion. They
Right.
they stay away from religion. Why do you think people become more and more secularism? Religious become less and lesser, even in Asia, you know, also in America, Europe.
Well, that's an interesting question. Why that's so? I've never really thought about it. I mean, um, in a sense, for me anyway, my Buddhist practice, the cross-legged meditation, in that I don't worship any god, I don't worship Buddha, I don't worship any of the bodhisattvas, I don't worship them. So, in that sense, my own practice is somewhat secular. So, why why have I moved away from this idea of worshiping a god or worshiping anything? Well, it just doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't make me, a better person. It doesn't help me grow or anything like that. So that's why I would consider myself to be more of a secularist than a religionist, because I don't really consider cross-legged meditation as being a religion. It's more of a science of the mind.
Meditation.
Yes, right. It's not really a religious practice. It's more of a practice of working with yourself and figuring it out, your life and so on. And then, paying close attention to what's going on, being mindful, being bodyful. So, the other religions, they don't talk about that. I mean, again, I don't discount the value of prayer or of going to the church and singing and praise and all that fellowship. It's great, but I think it lacks in something that is fulfilling for me that I find through meditation.
So can you say you don't really believe God, or you don't believe the existence of God? You can say like that.
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, John, how many people are there in the world? What, maybe 7, 8 billion, something like
Right,
that?
right.
So I think if you ask every one of those persons, what is God? What does God mean to you? You'd find a different answer. Everybody's going to have a different answer. It's not going to be all the same. Everybody has their own conception of what God is. So I'm not, I'm not an atheist. I'm an agnostic. My own conception of, God is more of like something like, universal compassion, universal love, universal understanding. So that's sort of like my agnostic feeling of what God is. But like I said, everybody in the world has a different conception or a different perception or view of what or who God is. So who's right? Who's wrong? I don't know.
So after you become a Zen Buddhism and you have any successful uh, friendship or negotiation or diplomacy or making peace with different community or different society or any com conflict issue.
Well, I think that personally, I'm a more peaceful person because of Buddhist practice. So, uh, hopefully, if somebody sees more peace in me, hopefully that will slightly influence them to be more peaceful too. But as far as any, grand objection. When I finished college, I joined the Peace Corps, and so I went to Guatemala and I volunteered for 2 years in the Peace Corps. So I think that that desire for volunteerism to help other people is an emanation from my Buddhist practice. So, in that regard, it has helped me to, develop some aspect of my character or personality that I may have never developed had I not gone into Buddhism. So, anyway, that that sense of volunteerism and activism has continued with me all throughout my life up until today.
Thank you very much.